Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of State of the Meta, and today we're going to be going over black as it proceeds to go into set 16. So make sure you guys like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of the content of the set, of the new decks that are coming out for black. If you guys are going to be playing them, if you guys are excited about them at all, or if you guys just think they're just going to get, you know, steamrolled by the main meta decks. You know, just let me know down below. We can have a conversation about stuff. So first things first, we'll go over what is on the table right now for black. And this, I think one of these being Gogeta, it's probably looked at as the community as being the only playable black deck, and I think that's wrong. I think there are other black decks that are playable. Obviously, other decks that are not Saiyans cannot run, you know, cards like True Fighting Spirit. I get it. And black has definitely been put into a position where you're almost defined by playing Thwarting, right? You're playing Thwarting, you're playing Beyond All Limits, and any deck that plays those two cards essentially would be decent, essentially, right? Now there are some other leaders. There's so many black leaders to talk about, and I'm honestly not going to, you know, spend 20 minutes talking about all of the potential good black leaders in the game. But I think these three are probably the best. One of these, I'm sure some people will probably think it's a little biased, but Gogeta, Magic Godorah, and Xeno Sin Cinex, which is my favorite deck in the entire game. I love that deck. So reason why I chose these three, obviously Gogeta did get hurt a little bit. The Smoke Dragon Unison is no longer usable in him. It's only usable in a deck like Magic Godorah. And True Fighting Spirit getting limit 1 does hurt a little bit. But the idea of Gogeta Xeno being the deck that's just going to draw a ton off of playing its Union Fusions, you can still playing Thwarting out on turn 1. Like, the deck is still going to function completely fine. And now you're just in a situation where you are running one of the two Unisons that you could run, which is Pycon or Mira. I think most people are probably going to go towards the Mira because of the double strike factor. However, Pycon does allow you to do some pretty interesting things as well, especially if you play the Catastrophic Premonition engine with the two one-drop Goku and Vegetas. Now, there's a lot of people saying that engine's really bad, and depending on the format, it really depends on the format, but being able to play out one-drop bodies off of Marvelous Might, and then bumping them with the Pycon to making them base 15, and then taking your leader and making them base 25. One's a crit, one's a double strike, and then they also gain 10k off their own effects. Like that's actually pretty good. Again, I don't think it's been explored a ton in Gogeta, and quite frankly, maybe that's a style that's built for another black leader. Maybe that's a video I'll have coming out. Who knows? Now we'll go on to the next one, which is going to be Dark King Magic Godorah. I think Magic Godorah, and I do actually have a deck idea for Magic Godorah that I do want to reveal at some time here. I playtested it quite a bit, but I do think Magic Godorah is one of the best slotted rogue decks for the new set. I'll go over that more when we talk about the deck, and even more in depth when I release the video. But that leader in particular, I think, counters a lot of what the best meta decks are in the game, and I think Magic Godorah could end up stealing some top events. Maybe not winning an event, but definitely stealing some top, final placings, because of what this leader can actually do. And like I said, we'll talk about that later. And then Cinex, I think Xeno Sin is the best slated deck for best of ones. I will put my money down against anybody. I think Sin is probably the best of one deck. For one, it's very difficult to plan for. It's a very difficult deck to plan for because there's two different styles of being able to play Sin. You can play the mill strategy, and there's plenty of decks in the meta right now where you can just swing at a Unison, not even swing at all, and you're able to gain advantage. And then there's the decks where you can actually aggro them down and kill them turn 2, turn 3, which I've done before. So it's possible to play this kind of hybrid style, and it's very intimidating for your opponent to be able to mill you for 4 to 5, 6 cards sometimes, with spending maybe 2 energy. It's very irritating. But I think in best of 3, the deck becomes much more fair because you can side deck against it. And Sin's side deck is very, very awkward because it's not, a lot of it has to, you have to try to fit as many Shadow Dragons in there as possible. And if you start fitting cards that are not Shadow Dragons, it messes with your consistency, and that's where it comes a little bit of a problem. So, the last thing I'm going to talk about, and I don't have a deck list for this because, with the new set coming out, it's going to change a lot of things, and I want to play test before I release a video for it. But Hatchiac is Hatchiac's a thirst trap, in a sense, right? Hatchiac is such a powerful leader, always has been. Hatchiac's in a position where this could be the most dominating black deck in the entire format. This could be the most dominating deck because of time rules, or this could be a trap and you could end up, you know, scrubbing out of every event that you play in. Like, it teeters this very strange line. Being able to slow down every deck, massive, right? Without, you know, Goku True Fighting Spirit being a multiple, you know, onboard effect, you don't have to deal with a lot of the warping effects now, right? Like, they have one on board, you're like, cool, I'm gonna slap down this Oceanus again, I'm gonna power burst, I'm gonna warp one from my hand, that's fine. Not a huge deal. I think Hatchiac has a very good place in this meta. If you haven't played Hatchiac before, I would strongly suggest play testing against it, play testing with it, just to have an idea of what you're going to come up with. But I think the new version of Hatchiac coming out in the set is going to be very irritating for people to deal with. So just something to keep on your radar. Hatchiac at some point will probably make a comeback in this format. We'll have to see when, though. So, first thing first we're going to go over is going to be Gogeta Fusion. This is just kind of a idea of the deck list here. Obviously, here we're having the Son Goku Catastrophic Premonitions. I could have just, you know, taken any of the top placing decks from the past, like Nats, stuff like that, but I just wanted to make a little, just kind of an idea of what I think the deck would run as. Trunks Time Regulator has slowly become one of the best Overwhelm 3 targets, I think, in the game now. Revived Ravager is a really good card. It's a Vegeta crit guy. But Trunks has just become this, it's weird, like Trunks has just become out of nowhere. It's become like the best small Overwhelm card. Like, I know Bardock, the 4-drop, the Overwhelm 4 guy used to be like the one to go to. I think Trunks is a little bit better now. But any black deck that plays Thwarting, or plays any, you know, fusion targets, is going to be really good to run Trunks, because you're able to draw 2, and then you can pitch one of your Goku or Vegeta, probably a Goku, to the warp, so that way you have a fusion target. And it's a really powerful card. Also, Super Saiyan Bardock the Tenacious. I think this card is starting to get more and more love in the main deck, being able to basically be a on-play dormant. In a sense, being able to stop your opponent from attacking with multiple battle cards. And it's a 25k body, so you can actually swing into something, preferably a battle card to remove it, and then your opponent has to either waste energy to play something else, or attack with something that's not as much value. So definitely think different variations of this deck will probably come about, but I think the aggro one is probably the most suitable one. It's just going to be weird now without, you know, multiple True Fighting Spirits. Next one is going to be Magic Godorah here, and this is not the Magic Godorah list that I'm going to be making a video for. I haven't decided how I'm going to make that video yet, so I'll probably post about it in the community stuff, but just Magic Godorah in general. Magic Godorah is one of the only decks that can affect, what is it? It has requirements for 4 different resource areas from your opponent, or has interaction with 4 different resource areas. You have the hand, you have the board, you have the drop area, and you have the warp. So it actually affects all of those areas. Because Magic Godorah has a lot of cards that your opponent needs cards in the warp, which gives you stronger boss monsters, and you're able to play stuff on curve. You're able to warp battle cards from the drop area, which is the Shroom and Salsa effect, which is basically keeping cards, drop area effect cards, and also sparking and overwhelm requirements down, so your opponent doesn't have access to that stuff. Being able to warp stuff on board, like Toa. Toa here is a walking max power Kamehameha, which is insane. It's a max Kamehameha. It's a max power Kamehameha that stops 2 attacks and also has combo power. Like that's very, very powerful to actually have, right? And this is slotted like this is a 4 of them in any Magic Godorah deck. You have your own Floodgate. You have another draw piece with the Salsa. You have aggro, anti-aggro matchups, which is Shroom. Shroom being able to warp something from the drop and something on board, and you swing into something. Like, it just gives you so much removal. And you also can main deck cards like Deborah, main deck cards like Quitzakai. There's also 1-drop cards that allow you to search out demons, and you know, there's so many things that you can do. You can main deck Broken Seal. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many different options of things that you can do. And I think lists like this are very, very good for budget. I think this list is like $100 here, mainly because of the Kingdom Lost and the Bardock Unison. But this is a good budget idea, a good structure of what a deck could look like for Magic Godorah. And then you guys can kind of start toying with stuff after that. And like I said, we'll go over more in a detailed breakdown of the deck. That will probably come out next week at some point, either next week or the weekend of the regionals. I have to put a lot of work into that video, so we'll see at that point. Finally, we're gonna go over Cinex. I will say, anyone who's playing Cinex, your number one goal should be running 60 cards. Just put 60 cards in the deck. If you're running less than 60 cards, then you can main deck stuff that are not, you know, dragons. But the idea is, if you're running all dragons, which is most of the time what you should be doing, run 60 cards. 60 cards feels absolutely amazing. It never has felt this good in any other deck, because the entire deck is searchable. The entire deck is playable. You're going to hit a Shadow Dragon every single time, and you're just going to be cycling cards. And that's the whole concept of the deck, right? You're going to probably mill yourself for, depending on the matchup, maybe 4 or 5 cards out of your deck from using spells, and you're just gonna be cycling so much. Like you cycle with Oceanus, you cycle with Ultimate Ice Ray. It's an incredibly powerful card archetype, and it's something that people do not respect, and people haven't really researched enough to really understand how this leader and this concept works. There's matchups where realistically you don't have to swing into your opponent, a la we'll say Yellow Sin, we'll say Golden Frieza. These are 2 matchups that I've learned from experience. Unfortunately, I've gotten clapped by both of these decks. I have whooped both of these decks. It's been kind of a 50-50 thing, but just stopping your opponent from awakening, especially if your opponent doesn't have a really good awakening, like an awakening condition, like they're one of the old leaders that I have to be at 4 life or less to do this, just don't swing. You just don't swing, and your opponent's life realistically doesn't really matter to you. Most of the time in those matchups, the control matchups, you're not trying to kill them. You're not trying to take their life down to 0. You're going to try to take their deck down to 0. And that's where the strategy part comes in, and you're forcing your opponent to operate under conditions that they're probably not used to before, and that's when a lot of the mistakes will happen and you'll end up winning. Or if you play against aggro matchups, you simply just tuck your Unison, you charge it, and you never play your Unison. And you have so much board removal with your baby Thording here, which is the Haze. This card is one of the MVPs of the deck, the Natron, because it has Deflect. It's going to come down, and if you bait it off of the 1-drop here, which you can play 3 drops off of, your opponent has to counterplay the window 1. So if they go to counterplay, they do Goku counterplay, they do Giant Ball, they do Trunks, God Sealing. You can just play the 3-drop. The effect fizzles because it has Deflect, and then you have the ability to absorb something on board or absorb a battle card in the drop area. Now, most of the time, you're going to absorb something from the drop area because they may not have stuff on board that's good, but if you just want to clear their board, you can just warp something off board. You just absorb it, and now it's gone for the game because it's going to go to the drop area. Very, very powerful effect. Ultimate minus Energy Ball, being able to warp anything 15k, ignoring barriers. So much defense for your Unison. And something that I think is overlooked because most battle cards are under 15k. Even if they have barrier, you're just like pop, warp that, and then you mill the card, right? Very, very powerful deck. Probably another deck that I will go over in full with a kind of like a Magic Godorah breakdown that I'm going to do. Again, got to figure out how I want to do the video concepts because this may be one of my Patreon type of videos. I do think it'd be very, very interesting to have. So we'll see once we get to that point. I'm not exactly sure. Now, we've gone over what the meta could possibly be. Now we're going to go over what the meta could change into when set 16 actually hits. Then we have Demon God Deborah and Super Saiyan Trunks. Super Saiyan God Trunks to be exact. Now, I think both of these leaders are actually. I've changed my tune on the Deborah. I've playtested on Untap. Done a lot of deck building with this deck because I love the Demon Realm ideas. I'm a big fan of Mecha-Gabora. But this deck this deck is more of an aggro version of what Mecha-Gabora would like to be. Mecha-Gabora is more of is definitely suited for a mid-range style. It can be played as an aggro deck. Realistically, though, it's kind of a mid-range deck, so like turn 4, turn 5 type of thing. Demon God Deborah, you can kill on turn 3, I think. It can get real spicy. While Trunks is slotted as kind of the in between of something like Vegex and Gogeta X, because it is a Saiyan Earthling, so it can't use all the stuff that Gogeta X can, but it does have a very powerful drawing mechanic. On the Unawakened side, you actually don't have to attack to draw, which means on turn 0, you have the ability to gain hand advantage or just being able to, sift through your hand by being able to draw, which is very, very powerful. So we're actually going to go over Trunks first. This is one of the deck lists that I came up with for the leader. As you see, kind of the same engine stuff as you'll see in something like Gogeta X, or basically any black Saiyan leader, right? But then you have all these archetype cards here that you also can use. Has a very interesting unison that also, gives this deck a lot of power. You have the Trunks that you can play from the Warp area, as well as support of the Dark Empire, which is that finally black has a token negate. Incredibly good. It's gonna be one of the best selling cards, I think, in the entire game. As a foil, at least in this set. This is gonna be like how Deborah Ritual at Hand was for a few sets ago. And then Demon God Deborah, another deck that I will probably end up releasing my actual list for it at some point. At least like what it is right now. But this deck, the main card in this deck is going to be King Summon. This is probably the main. If you want to play Deborah, you're going to want 4 King Summons. King Summon allows you to play out 2 drop demons, and that's where you get the board spamming effect from, right? You can play out things like Toa and this Deborah. You can play out Toa, and there's Gravies that you can play out. There's a lot of 2-drop demons that you can actually play out off of this. And this just allows you to expand your board, and then you can use those targets for swap targets. And then the being able to play out the unison, I think, is very interesting. Right? You can play out the unison from the drop area for one black, and then this also warps stuff on board whenever you swap, and it's got a lot of things to it. It's definitely a very high sequence deck. I don't think the ceiling's incredibly high for this deck, but the floor is also very high for it. So I think it's not a deck that you should probably pick up and pilot day one if you're not you've never really played like the swap mechanic. It's definitely something that you're going to want to test and play test with a lot. Being able to make sure that you're sequencing correctly, because if you don't sequence in the correct order, the deck's just going to lose a lot of its engine, and the curve is going to drop significantly, and you're not going to feel like you're getting any value out of the deck. Now, end part of the video here, we're going to go over some of the cards that I do think are very valuable for the set. Now, unlike other colors, there are a lot of good black cards in this set, and a lot of them are I just wanted to talk about a lot of them. So there's actually 6 black cards in this deck, not in this deck, but in this set that I do think are worth picking up. So happens that 2 of them are actually SRs. So the first SR is going to be Demon God Putin. This is probably the best black card in the entire set. I know, like I said, the Support of the Dark Empire will probably be one of the most sought after cards in foil, because it's a common, and it's got a foiling to it, and it's a token negate. So that card's gonna be really, really sought after. But in the SR slot, this may be one of the most sought after cards in the entire set. It is a 15k Dark Overwhelm for 1. When this card's played, you play out a token, which the tokens are 5k power with 0 combo cost and 5k combo power. Actually, battle, you pop one of your tokens to take out of the game. You draw a card, you resand this card, and then it gains 10k for the battle. It's also a blocker as well. And if you guys don't know, Dark Overwhelm means you have to have at least 3 black cards in the Overwhelm to be able to use Dark Overwhelm. And when you use Dark Overwhelm, the card stays in play. So what happens is you play this card, and now you gain a 15k, and you gain a 5k. And you can swing with Poutine, you can pop the token, restand, she goes up to 25, then you can swing again for 15. Or you can, let's say you use the token negate, right? So now you play a token that has block, or you have her on board. You can block with the token, and then you can activate battle, pop the token, draw, restand, and then the battle ends. And now you have her on board as a blocker. It's incredibly powerful. It's not limited. It's not unique. It's very, very good, right? Obviously not limit. You can only Dark Overwhelm once per turn. Unless you have, I don't know. I think Wormhole may work for Dark Overwhelm. I think. So I think you can Overwhelm, then you can Dark Overwhelm. But generally, you're not going to be doing 2 of these in a turn. But the fact that it's not unique is incredibly powerful. You can just slot 4 of these into any Overwhelm deck. It does cost 1, so it is a little fair. You know, you can't just free play it, which is like, you know, like a lot of the other, the Overwhelm 3 cards. But it is a very good card nevertheless. And it doesn't have an SPR print, which is very, very important. So the SRs that don't have SPR prints, you're going to want to pick them up because the price of these cards, go through the roof. Next is going to be Pan challenging a Demon God. This is the floodgate for the Trunks only leader. You can only play this in Trunks, and it's a 1-drop. You play this, you warp a card from your hand, and it doesn't negate the attack. But then your opponent wants to attack again with battle cards. They have to discard 2 cards each time, and that's very, very good. And it says unless they choose 2 cards in their hand to discard it, and they actually can't, if they can't fulfill the requirement, they actually can't attack anymore. So this being a 1-drop topo is incredibly powerful. Yes, it doesn't negate the actual main attack, but the fact that you can just stop your opponent from attacking multiple times after that is incredibly good. And it does put a card in your warp, which I think is something that we need to keep in mind, is because you are going to be playing thwarting in this deck, and being able to put cards in your warp is very powerful. You also can put the Trunks in your warp, which then you can play the Trunks out from your warp. So very, very powerful card. Definitely something that I'm going to want 4 of. And it's a rare, so hopefully we get some very cool, like, I want to see what the full foiling art for this card is going to be. And then Son Goku challenging a Demon God. A lot of people said this card's bad, and it's not the best. It is not the best. If the card just said when this card was played, draw a card, then you can play it off Marvelous Might from the drop or the warp. I think it's from the warp or the deck or something. And draw a card, that'd be amazing. But the fact that it is just a 1-drop draw 1 does give you some turn 1 plays in other decks that are not Gogeta X. So like SS4 Goku gives you another 1-drop to play. Why not, right? And it gives you another Goku target. And that's what we've been missing, is because Goku does not have a lot of 5k good 5k battle cards, right? The Negate's not great. Crush's Crushers, not great. This just being able to draw you a card is very, very above average, and just better than the other options. So it kind of slots into the best secondary Goku that you could play. And then the other 3 here, we have Birth of a Crimson Warrior. This is a search top 5 for a black Saiyan, and it costs a 5 or less, which means you can't grab thwarting off of it. But you can grab the Trunks, you can grab your super combo, you can grab any of the other cards that would be in the deck. The best part is activate battle, burst 1, limit 1 if your leader is a black Trunks, and you place the card at the bottom of your deck from your warp. You choose one of your leader or unison and you have 5k for the battle. So this is a free 5k combo every turn. And this gets slotted back into your deck. So you actually, like, you burst 1 off the top, but then you slide this back underneath the deck, so then it's going to gain value later on in the game. This is a great card. It's great to pitch off of Pan, because you can just put it in the warp, and then now you can use it as a 5k combo power. It has a lot of unique things you can do with it, and it's definitely something to look out for, because this could be probably a 2 of in Trunks decks. I don't think you would run more than 2, but it is very, very powerful. Definitely a good card to look at. Support of the Dark Empire, we've kind of already gone over this card, but this is going to be one of the most sought after common slotted cards in the entire set. The foil one especially, since this is going to be the first token game we get for black. And then Demon God Toa Umbral Might. Again, another SR for black that didn't have an SPR print. I think all the SPR prints came from the Trunks archetype, but all the demon stuff, even the Godorah Unison, this Toa, and the Poutine do not have SPR prints, which is very, very odd. This card is a 15k dual attack. You can evolve for 2 on top of a Toa that costs 2 or less. And when this card is played from your hand, you draw 1, and your opponent may choose 2 of their battle cards and/or cards in their hand and send them to the warp. If your opponent sends 1 or fewer cards to the warp, you choose one of their unisons with 4 markers or more and gain control over it. This card is nuts. So the idea of this card is this card is good in 2 different decks. This is good in any of the Demon God decks, because you are going to be playing Toas. In Magic Godorah, you can't really play it as well. You have to use King Summon, essentially, because the Toa that you play off of the ball effect is a 4 cost, so you actually can't do it off of that. But if you play any Toa off of the other effect off of the King Summon, you can play 2 drops. There's 2 different 2 drops you can play. You can evolve on top of that. Also, this is good in Finn. This is actually a better version of the Finn Unison Absorber that Finn plays, because in that deck there are 2 different Toas that you essentially would play. 3 actually, technically. There's 2 Searchers, and then there's the Skill Hunter, which is the counterplay. That one's really bad, but being able to evolve your 1-drop Searcher into a 3-drop dual attacker that draws you a card and then warps 2 things from your opponent or steals their Unison, and incredibly powerful. And the fact that you steal the Unison, you gain control over it, is absolutely nuts. Because now, if you steal a Majin Buu, if you steal Dark Broly, now you have this piece that they can't get back. And I'm pretty sure when you gain control over a Unison, it doesn't replace the Unison you currently have. I believe that's the effect that was used with the Capito Kai Secret Rare. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there, but I'm pretty sure that means you can just steal a Unison and then just have 2 Unisons on board, which is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, what an amazing card, right? So this is definitely a card you're going to see in Finn. You're going to see in a lot of different decks that play Demon Gods. I think it's going to be slept on for a little bit just because the Demon God stuff is still kind of being held with shackles, just because Godorah is not as good as we thought it was going to be. But at some point, when the Demon God Empire really, takes that next step, I think whatever Demon God deck is being played at that time will probably be top tier, if not one of the best decks in the format. So that's what I have for you guys today. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Thank you guys again, as always, for watching and supporting the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video.